What's good, y'all? Black and Indeed, we are back. Season 6 now. It's a whole new season. This is our second episode. In case y'all missed it, we did a live event back in DeBartolo just last week for Walk the Walk Week. It was a great event. Y'all check it out. I know y'all see we got a new person here today. Y'all know Luzolo. We said in our last episode from season 5 that Luzolo is going to be studying abroad in South Africa this semester, so she was not going to be here for filming. So we have a new co-host, and I'll go ahead and introduce you.
Hey everyone, I'm Tykiera Jordan. I'm currently a junior mechanical engineer here at Notre Dame. And yeah, I like talking about topics that affect me, so this ain't nothing new.
That's how it is. So we just wanted to make sure that y'all knew who she was, to make sure y'all weren't too caught off guard. We're gonna make sure that y'all know ahead of time, just so that y'all not, too off guard. But for this first episode, technically the second episode, but really the first real episode that we're filming, we wanted to start off with something that was very timely, something that really mattered to us, especially as Black people, and that right now is police brutality. And the reason why we chose this episode, the reason why we really wanted to talk about this is because, as pretty much all of y'all know, Tyre Nichols was just killed just a few weeks ago, when the body camera footage came out recently that really showed a different story than what the police were telling us originally. And so because of that, we felt that it was necessary not only that we talk about the murder of him, but also just police brutality in general. And we'll probably get into a few things like abolishing the police, defunding the police, things like that that are going to become very central topics as time moves forward, especially while we're dealing with all this. So for now, we just want to kick it off with kind of going through what happened with Tyre Nichols. I don't know about you, but me personally, I didn't watch the body cam footage.
Now me, I did. I completely regretted it. I was in tears, shambles. Just exactly how when I watched the George Floyd video, felt the same exact way. For this though, this one hit a little more. Once I found out that it was 5, and they also happened to be Black. I was completely disgusted, had no words. I was on the phone with my mother crying. I didn't know what to say, just completely shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even watch it myself just because I feel like as Black people, we've become so desensitized to a lot of this stuff. And even, you just spoke to how it brought you to tears. So that shows us that we're not completely desensitized. Like, it still hurts us because we can, see ourselves in them. But at the same time, I just didn't want to see it because I recognize the fact that, like, I've seen so many of these videos. I know how this stuff goes, and we know that this from what I've read, from what I've heard from others, this body cam footage is one of the worst pieces of footage of police brutality that has been released in like the history of this country. Yeah. And so I think that's something that really added on to me not wanting to really watch it, is because I already know it's gonna really bring out the emotions in me. I know it's going to make me extremely frustrated, and even beyond, it's going to make me extremely sad. And I just didn't want to watch it. So I've just been keeping up with things that I've seen on the news, things that I've seen people who have watched the video, what they're talking about. And just from what I've read, I can already just kind of like almost visualize, what happened. And I've seen a few like 5-10 second clips every now and then just because it pops up on Twitter. But I haven't put myself to watch the full video, and I'm not going to. I don't want to.
Honestly, I don't suggest it. I'm a sensitive person, but not very sensitive, as you said. Most of us are desensitized. But once I read a lot of things, and my mother and I talked about it, and I saw that it was 5 Black police officers, I know it's just something in me that was like, you're going to be hurt, but you have to see exactly what they did, what extent they went to, and how they truly just did not care that it was their fellow brethren that they were doing this to. So that's why I watched it. But I will say, I don't necessarily suggest watching it. It is gut-wrenching, so.
And I think that, there's something I saw on Twitter was someone said that, you shouldn't have to watch this video in order to understand that police brutality is something that really does affect Black people.
Right.
You shouldn't have to watch this video, and that's mainly going towards, the white population, the non-Black population. Obviously, we as Black people know that this stuff goes on. You have some people who deny it, and I'm not going to name any names, but that's on them. But for the rest of us, we know that these sort of instances go on. And so that, that Twitter post was mainly geared towards the white audience of people who, aren't watching it, or maybe who are watching it feel like they have to watch it. The whole point is that you shouldn't have to watch in order to believe that police brutality did exist. But one thing I really want to extend on that you talked about was how it was 5 Black police officers.
Right.
The system of policing itself has this legacy and this form in white supremacy.
Right.
The original policing organizations, if you go back to even pre-Civil War, they were formed in order to capture runaway slaves. And then beyond that, you go to 1865, Civil War ends, you go to the post-Reconstruction era right after the Civil War, and you start to see the rise of police organizations pretty much, capturing black people who committed petty crimes in order to put them back into slavery. Because for those that don't know, the 13th Amendment was passed, which the 13th Amendment, essentially what that does is it outlaws slavery, but only allows it in the form of punishment. So what we saw after, the Civil War and after slavery was abolished was black people being arrested for simple things like jaywalking, littering, things that normally wouldn't have, put you in, like given you any sort of time for jail or prison.
Right.
They were being put in prison because the United States recognized that, okay, we just built our entire economy off the backs of black people, off the backs of slavery. How do we continue doing that if slavery is now outlawed? And so they started forming police unions and organizations in order to do that. So that's just a little brief background history on policing. But getting back to these black police officers, I think that's what was so difficult for a lot of us is, like you said, seeing your own brothers doing stuff like this. I know me personally, I've only been stopped by the police. I've been stopped by the police numerous times, but I've only been stopped by one black police officer. And that one instance of being stopped by that black police officer was the worst experience I've had with police. And that's what I think is so interesting is that we would expect, a black police officer to really understand this, to understand our fear, to understand like, oh yeah, I'm uncomfortable around you just because you're police. I'm uncomfortable around you. I am kind of fearful. But it was that one black police officer who was very aggressive with us. He was very belligerent with us. And that really bothered me. And so to see these black men who we see them in a uniform and we try to see them as a black man first or as a black woman first before we see the badge, but to see them do what they did to Tyre Nichols, I mean, that's bothersome. And it's beyond that, really. It's gut-wrenching, like you said. It's disgusting, disturbing, but it really just hurts the core. It hurts the soul just as a black person seeing that,
Yeah, and I especially know for the city of Memphis, Tennessee, that is one of the most black populated cities in the United States. A lot of my family is from Tennessee. A lot of my friends are from Memphis specifically. And they told me how affected they were because they know that police system. And a lot of the police officers there are black because Memphis, Tennessee is a black city. So just seeing people that they would casually see walking around, casually meet here and there, officers that they knew, or like seeing their coworkers go through and do this, I know that hurt them even more than it hurt me. And it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's just so disgusting, And I saw people on Twitter saying things like, they're black, they're police officers, they're perpetuating the system of white supremacy. I saw one person, a famous black person, I can't remember who it was, but they talked about how, even though these are black police officers who committed this atrocious act, what you really have to focus on is that there was deeply ingrained white supremacy within their actions. And some people on social media and even just in media in general, they really struggled with grasping that. They couldn't really understand the fact of how could it be black people that are perpetuating, white supremacy. But that's exactly what this was. I mean, this beating drew parallels to, Rodney King. It drew parallels to so many other black people who were killed in the past. But this is just, it went beyond that. And normally we always see it's the white police officers that are killing us.
Right.
That gives us a reason to, really get out in the streets and be upset. But now it's one of our own. That's what really is hurting us a lot more, is just knowing that it's one of our own, And I know this will have the effect on people where, maybe in the past, if you saw a black police officer, you maybe felt a little bit more comfortable. But after seeing this, that comfortability, that goes out the window. Because now you know that if y'all can do this as my own people to us,
exactly,
I no longer have any sort of reason to feel safe around you, and that's what I think is a really big issue that is being touched on a little bit, but it's not being touched on enough, in my opinion.
You know what? I like that you brought that up because a lot of parents, black parents, have to give the police talk to their children about comfortability, what to do, and how you do this in a situation. But I never thought that I would have to apply that to a police officer that would look like me and most likely know what I've been through. But now, seeing that I'm not even safe within my own part of the community that's supposed to protect me, what am I supposed to do? I mean, especially I have a little brother. What is he supposed to do? He's not safe around white police officers. Now, basically, he's not safe around our own people. It's just sad to see what the world has come to. I was reading this article, and it was talking about the black police officers and like specifically the 5 that committed the action, and how in the police department, not just Memphis but everywhere, the black police officers have to do so much more to prove themselves, which this is not an act that should be chosen to prove that you belong in a system that already is corrupt. But they did this to show that it doesn't really matter, like whatever he was doing, it doesn't matter if he was black or white, like we're gonna do what we had to do in order to shut the situation down. Which, shutting the situation down by killing someone, not an option.
Yeah.
Completely crazy. So I still don't understand that, but I did read a post here or there trying to not necessarily defend what they were doing, but to expand on potentially why they went to the extent that they did.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to touch on too, kind of going off of that, is one thing that I was seeing a lot on social media was people being upset, not only that these officers were black, but they were sort of expressing their frustration and outrage for black police officers in general. They're arguing, how could you be a black police officer knowing that policing itself in history was used to oppress us?
Right.
And I found that to be interesting. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because I personally, I'm not a big fan of police. I'm just not. I've had a lot of negative experience with police in my life. But what I will say is that there is a need for black police officers. And I think that the point that a lot of people were missing when they were saying these things on social media was, if we have an entire country where there's no black police officers, we're going to be policed by people who have nothing to do with us, have no idea anything that, sort of the things that we do, the way that we speak, the way that we act, the way that we talk. We're being policed by all white people, and then a few Hispanic people, a few Asian people, and a few Middle Eastern people. But there'd be no one of us, of color like us, who would be able to actually police us. And that would create even more problems than we see now. You see what I'm saying? And so I think that's something that was being greatly overlooked by people is, we need black people to be police officers.
Of course.
It's just the problem is that we just don't need them to be like the ones who killed Tyre Nichols.
Of course.
We need them to be people who are pillars of the community, people who are really there for us, who are, if they see a white police officer who's acting out of turn, potentially brutalizing or abusing a black constituent in a city. We need a black police officer right there to put them in check.
Right.
I remember when George Floyd was killed, there was a black female officer, and I believe Minnesota, who put one of her fellow superior officers in check. She checked them. She was like, "You need to back up. This is not what we're going to be doing." And that's something that we need. So for people to say that, if you're black, you don't need to be a police officer at all, I think that was an issue, in my opinion, and that's something that I felt like needed to be touched on too.
No, yeah, that is something that my family, no shade, but they don't understand or want to understand why black people would want to become police officers knowing what we did. But as you said, it's necessary for some of us to actually step up and go into a system that's already corrupt and trying to do what they know what to do, how they can, like whatever they can, to change that and to prove that, hey, yeah, we're police officers, but mind you, like, we know the extent of what others have done. We're not going to do that, and we will take the steps to try and correct those who are doing what they should not be doing. Mm-hmm. So that, I understand that. That's also why when it came to police officers, I was a bit iffy. Now I'm a little more iffy, but it's like, I'm not completely giving up because, as you said, it is necessary for black officers to be in, policing, but right now it's a little rough. It's a little shaky.
Very rough, yeah. And I think, another thing that that's really been going on is, from the body camera footage, people were saying that Tyre Nichols was resisting arrest. They were saying that he, like other black people, were killed because of resisting arrest. And one thing that I think is important to really realize is that resisting arrest, first of all, just because, what happened with Tyre Nichols, he was resisting for a reason. There was a very understandable reason.
Exactly.
But in general, resisting arrest, that's not you writing a death warrant. That's not a justification for them murdering somebody, especially whenever, the police originally, whenever they filed the report, they said that Tyre Nichols had grabbed for an officer's gun. He was, resisting arrest. He was trying to kill the officers. They're putting all this in the original police report, but then once you watch the body camera footage, or once you read, the transcripts of the body camera footage, or you read, the description of it, you see that the police had lied originally.
Of course.
So it's like, that's nothing new for us. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who don't even recognize that, and they just look at the justification of, oh, well, he was resisting arrest. Resisting arrest is not, that's not a
Does not equate to becoming killed.
Exactly, and running away also is not a justification for being killed either. If you're running away, the only way they're gonna kill you is if they shoot you in the back. How are you a threat if your back is facing them?
Exactly.
You see, so it's like, it doesn't really make sense, a lot of these justifications that people are coming up with on social media. And that's really like bothering me, because I realize that if you're in that sort of situation, as Tyre Nichols, you're recognizing this, like, this is life or death. It's like either I fight back and I try and survive, or I just don't do anything and I still die.
Exactly.
And so I think a lot of people, whenever they speak on these issues, they're not trying to put themselves in the shoes of the person who was there. They're trying to speak from like the outside looking in.
Of course.
And that's an issue, because you can't do that, because you're in a place of privilege, and you're trying to, and that's everybody. You know, everyone. If you're in a place of privilege, if you're not that exact person who was being targeted, brutalized by the police. And so for you to speak on this saying, oh, you know, if I was there, if that was me, I would have just let the officers, you know, arrest me and they would have took me to jail. But there's so many instances of when you fully comply, when you don't resist, you know, Philando Castile, you do everything perfectly fine, and you still end up dead. There was a white dude who, like, you know, followed everything perfectly fine, didn't resist arrest, and he still died too. So, and there's so many other examples of that, you know? And so that's why I feel like people just aren't really recognizing it. It's like everybody wants a justification to back the blue, but no one wants to have a justification to back black. And that's the issue, in my opinion.
Oh, that's a nice little saying right there. That's a nice little saying right there. I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt.
For sure, yeah.
But no, it's sad to see, especially the way people use social media as ways to express their opinion, and then the people reading that are like, yeah, that's correct. Not looking up anything else, not looking up examples, not finding anything to support what they're saying. Social media has taken like sensitive topics like this and just completely deterred it and moved it into a different direction that people should not be focusing on. As you said, backing the blue instead of backing the black. Because a lot of these people on social media who are talking about topics like this, as you said, do not put themselves in the shoes of the person who has had the action committed onto them. And it's just really sad to see how something that was meant to, like platforms that were meant to help people reach out, say what they had to say, and get support from that, but not just any type of support that like people truly understood and knew that like were educated about. It's just sad that, you know, things like this has happened. Like my sister, recently had an encounter that social media kind of took things out of proportion, and she had an encounter with the police multiple times. Mind you, my sister is a minor. My mother did not know. So it's just, that's just one example, but that just goes to show how social media just is another way that people, like another thing that people use to skew point of views and skew stories and just make situations less desensitized and less important. So.
I think another thing that's bothered me about this whole ordeal is that even though like the body camera footage is clear cut, like this is clear abuse, this is clear murder, you still have people who are saying back the blue and blue lives matter. And the thing that sticks with me, that really bothers me, is this whole like blue lives matter thing. It's like, what the hell's a blue life? Like what is, like, you choose to go put on a badge and a uniform. I don't choose to be black every day.
I don't.
You have the choice to take off that badge, go collect your pension, or if you haven't gotten your pension yet, if you're not, you know, you haven't met those years, just go retire and go, you know, find another job. So like, so what do you mean like blue lives matter? And especially in an instance like this, where it's like these men clearly were not protecting and serving the community. At all. They just wanted a vendetta against this man. They just wanted to release their frustration, their anger, whatever. And they just stomped this man out, beat him, as Benjamin Crump stated, you know, he was like a human pinata essentially for these police officers. It's like, how can you still go and say, you know, blue lives matter, back the blue, these officers did nothing wrong, they got another thug off the streets, all this stuff, and especially whenever Tyre Nichols, he wasn't even a thug. He's a photographer, avid skateboarder, like, it's like, what are you talking about? A lot of these black men who are getting, like, having police brutality done onto them, looking at their records, they are just the average man trying to make a way in this world just like the rest of us. There is nothing that separates them per se, nothing that incriminates them, and it's just sad. It's just sad to see. This is ridiculous. It's happening too often,
Of course, it's happening mainly to only black people. And of course, when it originally happened, that's why Black Lives Matter happened. So just seeing the movement, quote unquote movement, I'm not even gonna call it one, Blue Lives Matter, seeing that, you know, sprout, it's just, it's ridiculous. Like, what are you really defending? As you said, people are choosing to put on the badge, choosing to stay, choosing to go through all of these trainings to become a police officer. All of us, we don't choose. I was born into this life.
Yep.
Now, I'm not gonna change it because I love being black.
Won't.
Sure won't. But we didn't have the choice. They do.
Exactly, and I feel like that's the point to be made, you know, and I hate seeing that stuff, you know, there's, you know, people are, you know, going on Twitter and social media saying, oh, Black Lives, you know, Black Lives Matter, what are y'all doing about the people in Chicago and the people in St. Louis? You know, what are y'all doing about the real crime in Memphis? You know, why are we focusing so much attention to these officers? It's like all those sort of things, they just bother me so much because it's like, you know, like Black lives do matter. You know, like our lives do matter. Each and every single Black life. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, transgender, part of the LGBTQ plus community. It doesn't matter what shade of Black you are. It doesn't matter if you're the lightest shade of Black, the darkest shade of Black. Each one of our lives matter. And you know, and whenever we see, you know, I hate seeing the hashtag trend. You know, just me thinking about it. I hate going on Twitter, going to the little search bar, and I just see a hashtag Black Lives Matter trend because I already know another one of us died. Another one, not even died, another one of us was murdered.
Yep.
And we have to restart this whole process all over again. I can't stand it because it's so frustrating having to, and I'm not someone who, I don't live my life in fear. I don't live my life in fear of being killed by the police every day. I know my mom lives that sort of, you know, that sort of fear where she's, you know, even after she found out about Tyre Nichols being killed, she went and called me to, you know, see how I was doing and, you know, just make sure that, you know, she told me he was only a few years older than you, you know. I don't want you to end up like that. And you know, that's really a fear for a lot of our parents. And with me, I try not to live that way because I recognize as a Black person, like, and some people may see this as like a victim mentality or whatever. In my opinion, it's reality. You know, I see it as like I could go at any moment by a police officer, even on this campus. You know, I've been followed by the police officers on this campus, as have many of us. You know, and we've had, you know, very negative experiences with some of the police officers on this campus. We venture out in the South Bend. A lot of us have had negative, you know, instances and situations with South Bend police, Mishawaka police. And so we always know that as soon as we just leave our own dorm rooms, and even as in like the case of Breonna Taylor, even you stay inside your own house, you stay where you live, you still have a chance of not making it out the door. And so that's what I think is so bothersome. You know, it's so disturbing having to not only live with that, but constantly like realize this is a real reality for me. This is something that could potentially happen. And knowing that there's nothing you can do about it. That's the part that hurts the most, is knowing that there's literally nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, look, as you said, it's sad to say, but this is a part of our day-to-day life. Just before I came back to school, me and my sister went to the store, right? You know, I haven't seen my sister in a minute, wanted to treat her, blah, 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 let her pick out stuff. Every single aisle we went to, you heard something on the intercom, telling security to go check. Mind you, I'm 5 foot. My sister's about 5'3". Yeah, she's taller than me. Don't come for me. We ain't doing nothing but looking at toys. What am I going to do? Why would I steal a toy at my grown age? I'm simply just walking up and down the aisle, not even touching stuff. I'm just looking. And you're calling someone on the intercom to come and check me and be slick about it? Disrespectful. And that's just a little instance, but that's something that happens every single day.
And that could always lead to something further.
And it can always lead to something further. They could have potentially followed me and my sister out the store.
Call the police on y'all, anything. You never know.
Exactly. And, you know, although those instances, like the little ones, aren't talked about as often, that's something that should also be talked about. We cannot do any of the simple things that all of our counterparts can do. It's ridiculous. Breonna Taylor, we can't even sleep. Where can we go? What can we do to just be us?
That's the question of the day. That's the question of the century, really. You know, like where can we go where we can just live without having to have that, you know, that reality in the back of our head that I could go at any moment.
Exactly.
And I think that's a real issue, you know. And I wanna wrap this episode up by going over just a few more points too. One thing that we really saw after this movement has been going on for a while. But after the death of Tyre Nichols, we saw this ideology come back up again, and that ideology is defunding the police and abolishing the police. And I wanted to speak on that too, because someone, not even someone, many people on social media were saying we need to defund the police immediately. And I saw some people who were on the opposite side of the aisle. They were saying, well, no, we should be further funding the police so that we can make sure that, we can further train these individuals so they don't do this again. But one thing about these black officers is that I believe all of them, or at least the majority of them, were college educated.
Yes.
They all went through police training.
Yes, they were.
And they all went through further extensive training based on their backgrounds. So if they went through all that training and were college educated and still committed an action like this, why do we need to further fund them? And I think that what people aren't really recognizing is they don't really know what defunding the police means. People, whenever they say defund the police, some people think that means that we're just going to strip all their money away and there's going to be, no more police, there's crime's going to be everywhere.
Right.
That's not what that means. What defunding the police means, for those of y'all that don't know, defunding the police essentially means taking money, especially excess money, from a police department and funneling that money back into the community. What people don't realize is that, or I think people realize it subconsciously, but they don't really realize it fully, consciously, is that police don't stop crime. They respond to crimes. So because of that, whenever you want to stop crime, or if you want to, change things in a certain community or in a certain neighborhood, you have to attack the issues at hand. So what defunding the police does is, if you want to stop gang violence, for example, well, why do people join gangs? Because there's nothing to do after school. Or maybe they have school, but the school is so poorly, it's so poorly functional that you don't really feel a need to go to school. So defunding the police takes money from a police department, excess money, and then puts it into the schools. It puts it into building like a YMCA, a recreational space, or different things that could potentially engage community involvement while also giving people things to do. In regards to low economic areas, it could be draining money and then put that into building factories or warehouses. Give people jobs, not even jobs that require a college education. This stuff that you can do, just manual labor, for example. That's the sort of stuff that defunding the police means. I remember a few years ago, there was a breakdown of the LAPD budget, and they had I think it was over $1 billion in their budget, and over $5 million went towards donuts. Donuts. From
$1 billion,
yes.
$5 million.
Went to donuts. Do you understand how much change could be done with just $5 million if you put that into Compton or South Central? There's some places where you see a lot of this sort of crime, but instead we want to spend that on donuts. That's what defunding the police means, And I see people saying, abolish the police. I personally, that's not realistic.
It's not.
Abolishing the police, that should have been done before in the 1800s, whenever police were just beginning to be formed.
Yep.
That's when that should have been done. At this point, policing is too far ingrained in our society to really go and abolish it. So I personally think it's a waste of breath to say abolish the police, but defunding the police, I think that's something that could easily be, attained. I think that's something that's easily achievable.
Just by the little things, like you said, $5 million for donuts. All of these communities that you mentioned, all they need is something to start, just a little spark to get something started. $5 million could easily do that. $5 million on donuts. I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on $5 million on donuts. That is ridiculous.
It sure is too.
Especially LAPD. What is y'all doing for real? Let me not get into it, y'all. Let me not. But yeah, as you said, defunding, I'm for it. But as long as it's defunded and it will actually go to the communities, because that's another topic. Would the money actually go to the communities? Probably not. Our government is selfish.
It sure is.
Selfish, corrupted. They care about the communities, but they really don't. So yes, I'm for defunding. Would it actually happen? Probably not. Sad to say.
I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance that it could happen, but I don't know. We live in a country that doesn't really want to progress itself. We kind of the country of regression. It seems like, especially these past few years. Which
is so interesting because we're a country that's always saying, yes, we're constantly changing. We're here for the movements. But actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
The actions are not committed. So if we were to defund the police, it would definitely be a long time span. We probably won't see it till we about 50. Give another 30 years.
Yeah, but at least we will see it. I don't care. I do care how long it takes. I want this to be done sooner rather than later. But at the same time, as long as it's done in a timely manner, that's what matters the most to me, because so many of these issues could literally be solved with just money, and not just giving money to the government and then telling the state government, okay, now you're going to go and disperse all this money here.
Right.
We have to make sure that we have people we can trust who are, really holding on to the money to make sure they can get that money where it needs to go. And that's what, I think is really big about defunding the police that a lot of people don't really recognize. And some people, I was actually having a conversation with a police officer from my hometown a few years ago, and he was saying he didn't really agree with defunding the police because so I claim I'm from Houston, because I am, but I live like 10, 15 minutes outside of Houston. So in the little city that
You one of them. That's
okay, whatever. But anyway, so the city that I live in, from what I understand, what the police officer was telling me, the city department is underfunded. Like they need more funding. They have people who are working overtime who aren't able to get paid. They don't have enough vests and equipment and training things for to train some of these officers. And so he said, well, I look at a department like ours and I say, well, how can you say defund the police whenever we don't even have the funding in general? And so that's, I think, is another important thing to look at is, there are going to be police departments that are severely underfunded. And you can't really further drain those departments because there's nothing really there in the first place. So I think when we look at the defund the police movement, we really look at some of those bigger police departments that really do have the funding.
Right.
And, in some cases, if you really wanted to put a focus on defunding the police, you could still fund the police too. If you drain the money from like LAPD and then put that into another police department that's somewhere around the area that is underfunded, that could then, further, training or do whatever. That could work. That could also be a part of defunding the police. It doesn't just have to be going straight into me. I mean, even if you are defunding them and then putting it into another police department, that is going back into the community.
It is.
And you just have to hope that they're not going to use those resources for bad. You have to hope that they use it for good. But I think that's something that, I just really want to speak on because I think that's something that a lot of people don't really understand too much. A lot of people, they just hear defund the police and all of a sudden they get all riled up and not happy. They don't want to see that. They think that's going to, cause like a mass wave of crime, as if mass wave of crime doesn't happen already. But that's something I felt like was important to talk about. So if you have something else you want to add.
Honestly, I could go on for a long time, but I think I'm
We got
good.
a little bit of time if you want to talk for a little bit.
Nah, don't
right.
get me started. No, it's okay. I'm good. All
right. So, we hope y'all enjoyed this first episode for us for season 6. I keep on saying first. It really is the second, but it's the first we're filming back here in the studio. We're glad to be back. We're happy to be back here. And like I said, we wanted to welcome you again, joining the crew for this semester. Luzolo will be back whenever, I believe next semester. But y'all know it's going to be a long time until then. So in the meantime, though, we know that y'all going to enjoy us. We're going to have a lot of chemistry, a lot of great chemistry going forward. We have a lot of great episodes planned out for y'all. And before we end, I wanted to give a few shout outs. So we actually do have our listserv, our Google form. It's going to be in the comments, not in the comments, in the description for this video. So y'all make sure y'all check that out. And we actually do read those. Luzolo and I do read them. And one of the things that we read was there's a family that owns a catering business out here. They cater soul food and things like that called Angles. And we wanted to shout them out in the area, make sure that they recognize, like we see y'all's comment, we saw y'all's response. We want to shout y'all out. For anyone that needs their catering needs, y'all go check them out. If y'all want some good black food, y'all check them out. If y'all want to go to another black-owned business, y'all go to Cool Runnings, a nice little Jamaican spot out here. That's real good food too. Bishop and Bay Soul Food, y'all check them out too. I just want to shout out, some of the black businesses out here, especially food, because I love food. I know a lot of us love food. Food's such a big part of black culture.
I'm a foodie. I'll say it.
Exactly. So if y'all ever in South Bend, y'all check out some of these black-owned businesses, especially these black-owned restaurants, and y'all give them y'all's time and y'all give them y'all's money. I promise y'all will not be disappointed. But that's gonna wrap it up for us, y'all. We just want to say, rest in power, Tyre Nichols, rest in power to all the other black souls who have been unjustly taken from us. We will continue to fight in their name. We will never forget their names. Like y'all know, we always say, remember the name. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode, y'all. So as always, black is beautiful, black is love, and black is excellence. I'm going to end this by saying black is power too. We love y'all, and we out.